The Valanthi had watched Earth for 50 years before they decided to make contact. Their observation drones had circled the small blue planet, recording everything. They watched humans build their first space stations. They watched them land on Mars. They watched them reach for the stars with eager hands and curious minds. Admiral Kethoran stood on the bridge of his diplomatic vessel, the Times Eternal Grace *, and studied the planet below. His skin was pale blue, almost translucent, and his eyes were large and silver. The Valanthi were an ancient race. They had traveled between stars when humans were still living in caves and hunting with sharpened sticks. "They are young," said his advisor, a female named Silvana. "Perhaps too young for contact." "The Council has decided," Kethoran replied. "Humanity has reached the threshold. They must be given the choice." The choice was simple. Every young species faced it eventually. Join the Galactic Concord as a protectorate, accept guidance and protection from the elder races, and in return provide resources and military service. It was a fair deal. The universe was dangerous, filled with threats that young species could not hope to face alone. The Drath hegemony alone had consumed over 40 civilizations in the last 1,000 years. Kethoran's fleet of 12 ships descended toward Earth. They made no attempt to hide. Their arrival was meant to impress, to demonstrate the power and majesty of the Concord. The crystalline vessels caught the sunlight and scattered rainbows across the sky. Millions of humans looked up and saw them. Some screamed, some prayed, most simply stared in wonder. The response from Earth came within hours. A single ship rose from the planet's surface to meet them. It was small and crude by Concord standards, a boxy thing of metal and ceramic that looked like it had been welded together in a hurry. But it climbed steadily toward them, and when it reached orbit, it transmitted a message. "This is Commander Lisa Brennan of Earth's United Space Command. We welcome you to our system and request a meeting to discuss your intentions." Kethoran found himself surprised by her tone. There was no fear in it. No awe. She spoke as if she were greeting a neighbor who had stopped by unannounced. The meeting took place aboard the Times Eternal Grace *. Lisa Brennan arrived with 2 aides, a man named Christopher Lane and a woman named Megan Torres. They wore simple gray uniforms with no decorations except for small flags on their shoulders. They walked through the crystal corridors of the Valanthi ship without gaping or gasping. They simply observed, their eyes taking in every detail. Kethoran met them in the diplomatic chamber, a room designed to impress lesser species with its beauty. The walls were living crystal that shifted through colors like a sunset. The floor was transparent, showing the stars beneath their feet. Gravity was lighter here, making every movement feel graceful. Lisa Brennan walked in and nodded politely. "Beautiful ship," she said. "Thank you for having us." "You are welcome, Commander," Kethoran replied through his translation device. "I am Admiral Kethoran of the Valanthi Diplomatic Fleet. I speak for the Galactic Concord, an alliance of 12 spacefaring species dedicated to peace and mutual prosperity." "We've been hoping we weren't alone out here," Lisa said. "It's good to meet you." Kethoran gestured for them to sit. Chairs had been formed from the crystal floor, shaped to accommodate human bodies. The Valanthi had done their research. "I will speak plainly," Kethoran said. "The galaxy is not a safe place. There are threats beyond your current understanding. The Drath hegemony is the greatest of these. They are conquerors. They have destroyed entire civilizations. They will eventually learn of your existence. And when they do, they will come for your world." Lisa's expression did not change. "Go on. The Concord offers protection. We would welcome humanity as a protectorate species. You would receive access to our technology, our knowledge, our trade networks. In exchange, you would provide certain resources and contribute soldiers to our defensive forces. It is a generous offer. Most species accept it eagerly." There was a long pause. Lisa looked at her aides. Christopher Lane raised an eyebrow. Megan Torres shrugged slightly. "We appreciate the offer," Lisa said finally, "but we'll have to decline." Kethoran's translator flickered. For a moment, he thought there had been an error. "I'm sorry." Could you repeat that? We decline. Humanity isn't interested in being anyone's protectorate. If we join your concord, it will be as equals. Full members with full rights and full votes. Sylvana made a sound of disbelief. Kethoran silenced her with a gesture. Commander, I do not think you understand the situation. Your species has been spacefaring for barely 2 centuries. You have no fleet capable of defending your world. You have no weapons that could threaten a Drath warship. Without our protection, you will be conquered or destroyed. Lisa smiled. It was a small smile. Polite but firm. We've heard that kind of thing before. Throughout our history. Actually, bigger nations telling smaller ones that they need protection. It usually doesn't work out well for the smaller ones. This is not about politics. This is about survival. It's always about survival, Lisa replied. And we've survived a lot. We'll take our chances. Kethoran studied her for a long moment. In his centuries of diplomatic work, he had never encountered a species that refused protection. Young races were always afraid. They always accepted. That was how it worked. The Drath will come, he said quietly. Perhaps not today. Perhaps not for years. But they will come. And when they do, you will regret this decision. Lisa stood. Her aides stood with her. Maybe. But it'll be our decision to regret. She extended her hand in the human gesture of farewell. Thank you for the offer. Admiral. Safe travels. Kethoran did not take her hand. He simply watched as the 3 humans walked out of his diplomatic chamber, their footsteps echoing on the crystal floor. After they were gone, Sylvana spoke. They are fools. The Drath will destroy them. Perhaps, Kethoran said slowly. But did you notice something strange? Perhaps, Kethoran said by the Bree. What? They were not afraid. Not even slightly. A young species, facing the reality of hostile aliens for the first time. And they showed no fear at all. He turned to look out at the blue planet below. Either they are the greatest fools in the galaxy, or they know something we do not. He ordered his fleet to withdraw. But he left observation drones behind, hidden in the asteroid belt. He wanted to watch. He wanted to see what would happen when the Drath finally came. He did not have to wait long. 6 months passed after the Valanthi left Earth. Life continued as normal. People went to work. Children went to school. The news talked about the alien contact for a few weeks, then moved on to other things. Humanity had been told that monsters were coming, and humanity had shrugged and gone back to its business. Admiral Kethoran watched from his hidden position near Saturn. His observation drones sent him daily reports. He saw the humans building things in orbit, but nothing that looked like warships. He saw cargo vessels moving between Earth and their colonies on Mars and the moons of Jupiter. He saw research stations and mining operations and passenger transports, but he saw no fleet, no weapons platforms, no defensive systems worth mentioning. They truly are fools, Sylvana said one evening as they reviewed the data. They have done nothing to prepare. Kethoran was not so sure. Something about the humans bothered him. They were too calm, too confident. But he kept his doubts to himself. Then the Drath came. The hyperspace rupture opened near Jupiter, a wound in space that bled purple light. Ships poured through it like insects from a hive. 47 vessels of the Drath hegemony, their hulls black and jagged, covered in weapons and armor. They were ugly ships, built for one purpose only: destruction. Overlord Vrexkal commanded the fleet from his flagship, the Times-consuming Darkness *. He was massive even by Drath standards, his insectoid body covered in ceremonial scars that told the story of his conquests. 12 species had fallen to his fleets. Humanity would be the 13th. He broadcast his ultimatum across all frequencies, making sure every human on every world could hear him. Creatures of Earth. I am Overlord Vrexkal, of the Drath hegemony. Your world now belongs to us. You have one rotation of your planet to surrender unconditionally. Those who submit will be allowed to live as servants. Those who resist will be destroyed. There will be no negotiation. There will be no mercy. This is your only warning. On Earth, the message was received in the command center of the United Space Command. Admiral Lisa Brennan, recently promoted after her handling of the Valanthe contact, stood at the central display and watched the Droth fleet move into formation. 47 ships, said Captain Christopher Lane, now her executive officer. All heavy combat vessels. They're not playing around. No, they're not, Lisa agreed. Colonel Megan Torres was already at the communications console. We're getting calls from every government on Earth. They want to know what we're going to do. Lisa was quiet for a moment. She looked at the display, at the swarm of enemy ships that had come to conquer her world. Then she smiled. Send a message to the Droth fleet. Tell them, acknowledged, please hold your position. Torres blinked. That's it? That's it. Then contact the Times Resolute Asterisk. Tell Captain Ortiz it's time. Then contact the Times Resolute Asterisk. Far from Earth, hidden in the shadow of the moon, something stirred. The Times Resolute Times had been built in secret over the course of 50 years. It was humanity's answer to the question that had haunted them ever since they learned they were not alone in the universe. What if the aliens were not friendly? The ship was nearly 3 kilometers long. Its hull was thick and layered, designed to absorb punishment that would vaporize lesser vessels. Its engines could push it faster than anything else in known space, and its weapons were the product of 10,000 years of human experience in the art of killing. Captain Daniel Ortiz stood on the bridge and read the message from command. He was a calm man, steady and patient. He had spent 30 years in the military, rising through the ranks not through ambition but through simple competence. When they had offered him command of the Times Resolute Asterisk, he had accepted without hesitation. He understood what the ship represented. He understood what it might one day have to do. All hands, he said into the ship-wide comm. This is the captain. Battle stations. This is not a drill. The Times, Resolute Times, came alive around him. Crew members ran to their posts. Systems powered up. Weapons that had never been fired in anger began to hum with deadly potential. Lieutenant Commander Maria Santos took her position at the weapons console. She was young for her rank, but she had designed half the targeting systems herself. No one knew the Times Resolute's Times capabilities better than she did. All weapons online, she reported. Targeting systems active. We have firing solutions on the entire enemy fleet. Navigation? Ortiz asked. Lieutenant Peter Hughes looked up from his console. Course plotted. We can be in engagement range in 43 minutes. Make it 30, Ortiz said. Full burn. The Times, Resolute Times, emerged from behind the moon and began its journey toward Jupiter. Its engines blazed with blue-white fire, pushing the massive vessel to speeds that should have been impossible for something its size. Admiral Ketharon saw it on his sensors and felt his blood turn cold. What is that? Silvana whispered. He had no answer. The ship that was racing toward the Droth fleet was unlike anything in the Concord databases. It was massive. Yes. But that was not what disturbed him. It was the design. The ship looked angry. It looked like it had been built by people who understood violence in a way the Concord never had. The Droth saw it too. Overlord Vrexcal studied the approaching vessel with growing confusion. His sensors told him it was a single ship. One ship against 47. The humans were either insane or suicidal. Destroy it, he ordered. Show them what happens to those who resist. The Droth fleet moved to intercept. Weapons powered up. Targeting systems locked on. On the bridge of the Times, Resolute Asterisk, Maria Santos watched the enemy formation on her display. They're coming to meet us. All 47 ships. Captain Ortiz nodded slowly. Good. Less distance to travel. He looked around at his crew. These were good people. Brave people. They had trained for years for this moment, hoping it would never come but knowing it probably would. Let's show them what we can do. The Times, Resolute Times, did not slow down. It did not attempt to evade. It flew directly toward the heart of the Droth fleet, and as it approached, panels along its hull began to slide open. Weapons emerged from hidden compartments, railguns the size of city blocks, missile batteries carrying warheads that could crack moons. energy projectors based on physics the Concorde had never discovered. Admiral Keth Oran watched in horrified fascination. "How?" he murmured. "How could they build such a thing?" The answer was simple, though he would not understand it for some time. Humanity had been preparing for war since before they knew aliens existed. It was what they did. It was what they had always done, and they had gotten very, very good at it. The first shot was fired by the Droth. A destroyer at the front of their formation launched a volley of plasma torpedoes at the approaching human vessel. The weapons were designed to melt through armor like butter. They had destroyed hundreds of ships in previous campaigns. They splashed harmlessly against the Times Resolute's Times shields. Captain Daniel Ortiz watched the impact on his display. The shields flickered briefly, then stabilized. Damage: 0%. "Their weapons are energy-based," reported Lieutenant Commander Maria Santos. "Our shields are designed to absorb and dissipate energy. They're going to have a hard time hurting us." "Good to know," Ortiz said. "Let's return the favor. Target the lead destroyer. Fire when ready." Maria's fingers moved across her console with practiced ease. On the hull of the Times Resolute **, a railgun the length of a football field, oriented toward the enemy ship. Magnetic coils charged. A tungsten projectile the size of a car was loaded into the firing chamber. The weapon fired. There was no sound in space. But if there had been, it would have been deafening. The projectile accelerated to a significant fraction of the speed of light, in less than a second. It crossed the distance between the ships in the blink of an eye. The Droth destroyer did not explode. It simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, 100 meters of black metal and cruel weapons. The next moment, it was a cloud of expanding vapor and debris. Overlord Vrexkal stared at his tactical display in disbelief. His mind struggled to process what he had just witnessed. A single shot had destroyed one of his warships. "All ships, attack!" he roared. "Surround them! Destroy them!" The Droth fleet swarmed toward the Times Resolute *, 39 combat vessels plus 6 support ships, all converging on a single target. Plasma torpedoes and particle beams filled space with deadly light. The human ship flew straight into the storm. On the bridge, Ortiz remained calm. "Damage report. Shields holding at 92%, reported his operations officer, Lieutenant Karen Webb. "Minor fluctuations from the concentrated fire, but nothing critical. Maria, you have free fire. Take them apart." What happened next would be studied by military historians across the galaxy for centuries. The Times, Resolute Times, did not fight like Concorde ships fought. Concorde battles were elegant things, almost ritualistic. Ships would maneuver and posture, firing warning shots, demonstrating superiority until one side admitted defeat. Casualties were minimal. Honor was preserved. The Times, Resolute Times, fought like something out of a nightmare. Railguns fired in continuous salvos, each shot destroying or crippling an enemy vessel. Missiles launched in swarms of hundreds, overwhelming point defense systems and tearing ships apart from multiple angles. And when the Droth got close enough for their weapons to actually hurt, the Times, Resolute Times, revealed its final surprise. Panels along its sides slid open to reveal batteries of close-range weapons. Rapid-fire cannons that could put out thousands of rounds per minute. Short-range missiles that could adjust their course dozens of times before impact. And something the Concorde had never seen: directed energy weapons that seemed to tear holes in space itself. A Droth cruiser made the mistake of trying to ram the human ship. The Times, Resolute Times, pivoted with impossible agility for something its size and unleashed a concentrated beam of energy that cut the cruiser in half lengthwise. Admiral Keth Oran watched from his hiding place, unable to look away. It was like watching a predator among prey. The Droth ships, which had terrified the galaxy for centuries, were being slaughtered. 23 enemy vessels destroyed, Maria reported. Her voice was steady, professional. She might have been reading a weather report. Switching to secondary targets. "Helm, bring us around," Ortiz ordered. "Don't let any of them reach Earth." Lieutenant Peter Hughes adjusted their course. The Times, Resolute Times, swept through the debris field of destroyed Droth ships and oriented toward the survivors. Overlord Vrexkal finally understood that he was going to die. The realization hit him like a physical blow. He had conquered 12 species. He had never lost a battle. And now, against a single ship from a species that should have been helpless, his fleet was being destroyed. He tried to rally his remaining ships. He ordered them to concentrate fire, to find a weakness, to fight harder. But there was no weakness to find. The human ship was designed without compromise, built by people who understood that in real war, there were no second chances. The battle lasted 43 minutes, from the first shot to the last. When it ended, all 47 Drath vessels had been destroyed or disabled. The Times Resolute Times had suffered superficial damage to its outer hull. No crew members had been killed. No systems had been seriously compromised. Captain Ortiz stood on his bridge and looked at the field of debris that had once been an invasion fleet. He felt no triumph, no satisfaction, just a tired sort of relief that it was over. "Search and rescue," he ordered. "Look for survivors, even Drath survivors. We'll take prisoners." His crew looked at him in surprise. The Drath had come to conquer or destroy their world. They deserved no mercy. Ortiz understood their reaction. "We're not like them," he said simply. "Find survivors." They found several hundred Drath floating in escape pods and damaged lifeboats. Among them was Overlord Vrexkal himself, pulled from the wreckage of his flagship by human rescue teams. He was brought to the Times Resolute Times in restraints, surrounded by armed guards. When they brought him to the bridge, he found himself standing before Captain Ortiz. The human was smaller than him, softer. By every measure the Drath used to judge worth, this creature should have been beneath his notice. And yet, this creature had just destroyed his entire fleet. "What are you?" Vrexkal demanded. His voice was harsh, his translator struggling with his emotional state. "The Concord records say you have been spacefaring for only 2 centuries. You should be nothing. You should be prey." "How did you build such a weapon?" Captain Ortiz looked at him for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was quiet. "We've been fighting each other for a lot longer than 2 centuries. We've had thousands of years of practice." He gestured to the tactical display, which still showed the debris field outside. "Your people came here thinking we were easy targets. You thought because we were young, we were weak. But we're not weak. We're just new to space. War is something we've known for a very long time." Vrexkal had no response. For the first time in his life, he truly understood what it meant to be afraid. Admiral Kethoran powered up his ship and prepared to return to conquered space. He had a report to make. The Council needed to know what had happened here. Humanity was not what they had expected. Not at all. The news of the battle spread across the galaxy like wildfire. A single human ship had destroyed an entire Drath war fleet, 47 vessels, gone in less than an hour. The Drath hegemony, which had terrorized the galaxy for centuries, had been humiliated by a species that most of the Concord had never even heard of. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from all 12 member species gathered to discuss what had happened and what it meant for the future. Admiral Kethoran stood before them and delivered his report. He showed them the sensor recordings. He showed them the analysis of human weapons and tactics. He showed them the final casualty count. 47 Drath ships destroyed. 0 human ships lost. The chamber erupted in chaos. Some delegates demanded that humanity be quarantined, isolated before they became a threat. Others argued that they should be recruited immediately, brought into the Concord before they decided to expand on their own. A few simply sat in stunned silence, unable to process what they had witnessed. Finally, Grand Chancellor Morvex of the Thren called for order. He was ancient even by Concord standards, his scaled hide wrinkled with age and wisdom. "We need more information," he said. "We cannot make decisions based on fear and speculation. Admiral Kethoran, I am authorizing you to lead a delegation to Earth. You will conduct a full investigation of human military capabilities. You will learn everything you can about how they built that ship and what else they might be hiding." Kethoran accepted the mission without hesitation. Part of him was afraid of what he might find. but a larger part needed to understand. 2 weeks later, his diplomatic vessel entered Earth's solar system once again. This time, he was met not by a single crude transport, but by the Times Resolute Times itself. The massive warship escorted him to Earth orbit, a silent reminder of what humanity could do if provoked. Admiral Lisa Brennan met him at the orbital station. She looked the same as before. Calm, professional, unimpressed by his rank or his ship or his mission. "Welcome back, Admiral," she said. "I hear you have questions. Many questions," Kethoran admitted. "The Council is concerned about your capabilities. They have sent me to learn the truth." Lisa nodded. "We have nothing to hide. We'll give you a full tour of the Times. Resolute asterisk. You can talk to our crew. You can examine our weapons. We want the Concord to understand us." The tour began the next day. Kethoran brought a team of military analysts, scientists, and diplomats. They were given unprecedented access to the human warship, allowed to examine systems that should have been classified secrets. Chief Engineer Kevin Park showed them the power systems first. The Times, Resolute Times, ran on fusion reactors of human design, but they were unlike anything the Concord had ever seen. They produced 3 times the energy output of comparable Concord systems while being half the size. "How?" asked Dr. Yelnora, a Valanthi physicist. "Our models say this should be impossible." Kevin shrugged. "We tried a lot of things that didn't work before we found things that did. Our scientists have been working on fusion for over 300 years. We've had time to make improvements." The weapons systems were next. Lieutenant Amy Walsh, the ship's weapons officer, demonstrated the targeting arrays. The system could track and engage over 2,000 individual targets simultaneously. It could calculate firing solutions, adjust for enemy movement, and coordinate attacks across dozens of weapon platforms all at once. "This is more advanced than anything we have," admitted General Krextor, a military analyst from the Vorn species. "How did you develop such technology?" Amy considered the question. "We've been fighting wars for a long time, thousands of years. Every war taught us something new. Every enemy forced us to adapt and improve. We got very good at figuring out how to kill things before they killed us." But it was the medical bay that truly disturbed the Concord delegation. The Times, Resolute Times, had a full hospital built into its structure, surgical theaters, recovery wards, hundreds of beds for wounded crew members, medical equipment that could treat everything from minor injuries to major trauma. Dr. Nathan Cruz, the ship's chief medical officer, showed them around with obvious pride. "We can handle almost anything here. Combat injuries, radiation exposure, decompression sickness. We've got equipment and staff for every emergency." Dr. Yelnora looked around the facility with growing unease. "You have medical facilities on your warship?" "Of course," Nathan said. "Our people get hurt in battle. We need to be able to help them right away. Every minute counts when someone is bleeding. But your weapons, your armor, your tactics." She was struggling to find words. "They are all designed around the assumption that you will take casualties, that your own crew will be injured and killed." "Yes," Nathan said simply. "That's what happens in war." The Concord members looked at each other. Their own ships had minimal medical facilities. Their battles were fought at range, with clean weapons and clear rules. The idea of building a ship that expected its crew to bleed was alien to them in ways they could barely articulate. Admiral Kethoran pulled Lisa aside after the tour. They stood on an observation deck, looking down at the blue curve of Earth below them. "Your ship," he said slowly. "It is not just a weapon. It is a philosophy." Lisa nodded. "I suppose it is. You built it expecting to fight, expecting to bleed, expecting to lose people and keep fighting anyway." "Yes." Kethoran was quiet for a long moment. "The Concord has been at peace for thousands of years. When we fight, it is with rules and rituals. We demonstrate superiority, and the inferior side surrenders. Casualties are rare. Deaths are rarer." "That sounds nice," Lisa said. "It is civilized." Kethoran turned to face her. "What you do is not civilized. It is brutal and terrible, and I do not fully understand it. Lisa met his gaze. No, you don't. And I hope you never have to. No, but you do understand it, he pressed. Your species, so young, so new to the stars. You understand war in a way we never have. We've had a lot of practice, Lisa said. We spent thousands of years fighting each other, learning all the ways that people can hurt and kill and destroy. We didn't stop because we found peace. We stopped because we finally realized that if we didn't stop, we would destroy ourselves. She looked out at Earth, at the clouds swirling over continents where her ancestors had fought countless battles. We built the times, resolute times, because we knew that someday, someone would come for us. Someone like the Drath. And we knew that when that day came, being civilized wouldn't save us. Only being strong would. Kethoran understood then. The humans were not warlike because they enjoyed violence. They were warlike because they had learned, through bitter experience, that the universe was not kind to the weak. It was a lesson the Concord had never needed to learn, until now. The Galactic Council chamber was the largest enclosed space in known civilization. It hung in orbit around the Concord's capital world, a sphere of crystal and light that could hold representatives from 1,000 species. Today, it held only the 12-member races of the Concord, plus one new applicant. Ambassador Grace Powell stood at the speaker's platform in the center of the chamber. She was 63 years old, with gray hair and steady hands. Before she became a diplomat, she had been a soldier. She had fought in humanity's last great war against itself. The conflict that had finally convinced the species to unite or die. She understood war. She understood peace. And she understood what she needed to say. "Thank you for hearing me," she began. Her voice was clear and calm, carrying easily through the chamber's perfect acoustics. "I know that humanity's recent actions have caused concern among your people. I am here to explain, and hopefully, to help you understand." Grand Chancellor Morvex nodded from his elevated seat. "Proceed, Ambassador." Grace touched a control on her podium. A holographic display appeared above her, showing images from human history. Armies marching, cities burning, weapons evolving from clubs, to swords, to guns, to missiles. "You want to know why our warship frightens you," she said. "It is not its weapons or its armor. It is what it represents." She moved through the images slowly. Ancient battles, medieval sieges, modern warfare in all its terrible glory. Humanity spent 10,000 years learning how to kill each other. We got very, very good at it. Every weapon we build, every tactic we develop, every ship we design, comes from that history. We did not just learn war. We perfected it. The chamber was silent. The delegates watched the images with a mixture of horror and fascination. Our ship, the Times Resolute Asterisk, is the product of all that knowledge. It was built by people who understood that in real war, there are no rules, no rituals, no clean endings. There is only victory or defeat, survival or extinction. She paused the display on an image of the Times Resolute Times itself, hanging in space like a promise of violence. "But this is not why you should let us join the Concord." The image changed. Now it showed different scenes from human history. Medics treating wounded enemies, soldiers sharing their food with starving civilians, cities being rebuilt after destruction, hands reaching out to help. We learned something else during those 10,000 years of war. We learned that the point of being good at fighting is not to fight. It is to protect. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of as many delegates as she could. Every time we went to war, we saw the cost. The dead, the wounded, the orphans and the widows and the ruined cities. We saw what violence really meant. And most of us, most of the time, learned to hate it. She stepped away from the podium and walked toward the center of the chamber floor. We build terrible weapons because we know that terrible enemies exist. We train our soldiers to kill because we know that sometimes killing is the only way to protect the innocent. But we do not love war. We do not seek it. We simply prepare for it because we know, from long and painful experience, that it will come whether we are ready or not. Admiral Kethoran rose from his seat. The chamber turned to look at him. "I have seen their ship," he said. "I have spoken with their people. What the ambassador says is true. They are prepared for war in ways we cannot imagine. But they are not eager for it. They are simply ready." He descended to the chamber floor and approached Grace. They stood face to face. Two representatives of very different cultures. "I called them fools when they refused our protection," he admitted. "I thought they did not understand the danger. But I was wrong. They understood it better than we did. They had seen danger before, faced it, survived it. They were not afraid, because fear would not help them." Grace nodded slowly. "We learned a long time ago that fear is useless against enemies who will not stop. The only thing that works is strength." Chancellor Morvex leaned forward. "And if we let you join the Concord? If we accept you as equals? What then?" Grace turned to face him. "Then you have us. Our ships. Our soldiers. Our knowledge of war. When the Droth come again, and they will come again, you will not face them alone. And what do you want in return? Equality. Respect. A place at the table." She smiled slightly. "And maybe some of your technology. Your medicine is centuries ahead of ours. Your agriculture could feed billions more of our people. We have much to offer each other." The chamber fell into quiet discussion. Delegates consulted with each other, their voices a soft murmur in the vast space. Finally, Kethoran spoke again. "You are a terrifying species, Ambassador Powell. Your capacity for violence is beyond anything we have encountered." "Yes," Grace agreed without hesitation. "And yet you also show mercy. You took Droth prisoners instead of killing them. You offered medical aid to your enemies. Why?" Grace thought about the question. It deserved an honest answer. "Because we know what it costs to be cruel. Every atrocity we have ever committed has left scars on our people that lasted generations. We learned that mercy is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is the understanding that today's enemy might be tomorrow's ally, and that the universe is too vast and too dangerous for anyone to stand alone." The chamber was silent. Admiral Kethoran turned to face the council. "I recommend that we accept humanity's application for membership. Not as protectorates, but as full equals." The vote was called. One by one, the member species cast their ballots. When it was done, the result was unanimous. Humanity had joined the Galactic Concord. 3 years later, the Droth hegemony launched their Great Crusade. They came with 1,000 ships, determined to avenge their defeat and conquer the Concord once and for all. They were met by a combined fleet. Valanthi crystal ships and Vorn heavy cruisers and Thren carriers fought side by side with human warships. The Times, Resolute Times, led the charge, but it was not alone anymore. Dozens of human vessels followed in its wake, each one a product of 10,000 years of learning how to fight. The battle lasted 3 days. When it ended, the Droth hegemony was broken, their empire collapsed, their conquered species were freed, and the galaxy finally understood. Humanity had not built warships because they loved violence. They had built them because they loved what violence could protect. Their families, their homes, their friends and allies and fellow beings. They had perfected war so that one day, perhaps, war would no longer be necessary. The Concord never forgot the lesson. And in the centuries that followed, when new threats emerged from the darkness between stars, they knew they did not face those threats alone. They had humans standing beside them. And that made all the difference.